a little morbid, but if you died tomorrow, single, what would they say on your tombstone? Would it just be that, like, Kait, she pined after men forever and just wanted to be married?
Wow.
Like,
And died
would that,
incomplete
and
and
died
unmarried, right?
without fulfilling that dream.
Wow.
Like, I think there's so many singles that live in that state of, like, if they died next week, like, they would just have been thinking about marriage this whole time. And I'm like, you don't want that to be the legacy you leave.
No way. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Questions with Caden. I'm your host, Caden Fabrizio, and just want to welcome you to this podcast. If you like me holding this microphone, let me know, because I kind of like it, Court. Kind of feels good. I got a little extra freedom, it feels like. I don't know if I'm a two-hand mic guy yet, or if I'm a one-hand mic guy yet. I don't know if it's a left hand, but we're going to get comfortable with it. But thanks for clicking on the pod. Just want to welcome you here to this podcast where in every single episode we ask one question and try and dive deeply into that question and give you guys something to think about that hopefully becomes an answer or a bridge to a deeper relationship with Jesus. Couple quick things for y'all before we jump into this amazing episode with Kait and JJ Tomlin today from The Heart of Dating. First thing, big shout out, as always, to UME Media for just having us into the studio. Courtney, come here. Come real fast. Just come here. Just come here. This amazing individual right here that I love so much. This is her place.
Am I even in the camera?
I don't know, but say hey.
Hey.
She owns this amazing studio, also produces the podcast. And so let me just say this. If you need any creative space needs, go to umemedia.co, click on studio button. You can rent this for whatever you need. I mean, you could probably rent it and have lunch in here if you wanted. I'm sure she'd let that happen. Yeah, she said yeah. Cool. Secondly, big shout out to Life Audio. Thanks so much for all y'all do. Go ahead and go to lifeaudio.com to check out all of the amazing podcasts they have. Podcasts on marriage, dating. They also have this really cool historical biblical context podcast I just found out about. So you guys can go check that out as well. And then lastly, I mean, if you love me, if you love us, if you love Matt, which, by the way, Matt's back. Hey, Matty. How are you, man? He said he's good. You'll see him in the next couple episodes, but he's back, and it feels right. But if you like us, please subscribe to the podcast everywhere. It helps us out so much. And if this episode encourages you, which it's an amazing episode, share it with a friend or a family member. But today on the pod, we have Kait and JJ Tomlin coming on the pod today to talk about singleness. We're answering the question today, why am I single? They have an amazing podcast and ministry called The Heart of Dating, where they help singles find a person to advance the kingdom with. And I just love what they're doing. I love them as people. And I'm really excited for you guys to check out this episode. So let's jump right in. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Welcome to the pod.
What's up?
It's so pumped to be here.
I honestly am stoked. I just told you guys, but I will tell the listeners, this is the first time we have more than one guest on the show.
That's fun. Are you nervous to interview two people at once?
I feel like I'm on a job interview.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
like,
we're interviewing
like
you.
I'm getting interviewed. Like,
okay.
what's your strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah.
Like, well, how are you?
Which
know,
is the worst interviews when
resume.
you're interviewed by two people at
Yeah.
once.
And
It's
they
like,
give each other the weird, like, those
Yeah.
ones?
Right.
exactly.
The weird, like, nods?
Well,
Like,
Kate
look
and
at
I,
each
well, Kate always tries to give me the nods,
Yeah.
especially in like social circumstances.
I'm like, hey babe, come on.
Yeah.
We're working on our married cues. Like,
good,
hey,
yeah.
let's exit the situation.
they all go over my head.
And
yeah.
we figure out the cue beforehand, and then when it comes time to doing the cue, JJ is like not looking. I'm
Okay,
like,
yeah.
hey,
Which
come
one
on.
of you guys is more, like, extroverted or in, like, a social situation?
I'm definitely a little bit more extroverted in my own universe.
Okay.
And like Kate can be having a good time at 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
and 9:01 hits, and she's like, it's
Ready
time
to
to
go.
go.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm
You have your, like, boundary.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like turning into a pumpkin.
Okay.
We gotta go, babe.
Yeah.
It's like burn bright,
And
die
then it's
young.
like a 30-minute goodbye from JJ.
Because you got to peel him out of it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm you.
yeah,
I'm you.
I have a hard time saying goodbye.
I have a hard time saying bye too. I have friends, they do like the Irish goodbyes. Hey, y'all, see ya. Or
Yeah.
just disappear. And I'm like, okay, I'll meet you guys in the car. And then I'm not out for an hour.
Yeah,
Because I'll
It's
say
so
bye to everyone
hard.
at the party and then realize, oh, we didn't talk.
right. And then
Oh,
we gotta
yeah.
talk.
How you been, man?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to just say hi, bye. You know?
That's exactly what you do, honey.
I know. I think Kate, in theory, wants to be the high bye, but she's not.
Yeah.
I'm
And so she's a little I'm going to call you out a little bit hypocritical.
Oh.
Wow.
Sometimes, no, it does happen to me too.
You know what it just changed into? It went from job interview to now I'm like a marriage counselor.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
It just switched
The
so
power
fast.
dynamic is
Yeah,
switched.
so tell me more about that.
That's great.
Tell me more
about
Okay, we're not falling for
Yeah,
that.
well,
dude.
this is how I feel
We
when
got
he
to
does
restore the
that.
dynamic. Okay.
Oh, man. I
So,
love it.
Caden,
What's up?
are you excited about the podcast today?
Dude, I am stoked, man. Thanks for coming on, guys. Making the
excited.
long drive up from Orange County.
It was good.
All the way up to Pasadena. Big shout out to You and Me Studios. But stoked
amazing.
to have you guys.
Yeah,
For
we're
real.
pumped.
Fun.
This is going to be really fun. We're
I'm fun to
talking.
just hang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I told for the listeners, I told Kait and JJ, like, my like heart for having people on the podcast has changed. Like I used to want to like come on here and kind of like almost like preach together.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, let's attack a topic together.
Yes.
Which we are. We're going to talk about singleness today. And the question we're asking is, why am I still single? Not me, like you.
But we
But
might ask you
also-
that.
You know what I mean?
But we might.
You know, but also, you don't know what they're going to ask. You really don't. So, but yeah, I'm just excited to just chop it up with you guys today.
Yeah.
There's not much on the docket. I got a Bible verse for us to read, kind of set the foundation. Maybe we'll pray, and then I'm just eager to hang, get to know you guys
Yeah.
Let's do
better.
it.
I mean, we kind of obviously know each other. We met at a friend of ours' wedding, Riley
Yes.
Sewell.
Yes.
But have like
Riley
missed
Kehoe
each other.
now.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Jack. That's on you, dude.
Jack.
That's disrespectful to you, Jack, and I'm sorry. I love you
you,
too much
Jack.
to be acting like that. But yeah, I'm excited just to get to sit down and kind of hear some of your story. I've got the handheld today, which might be better for me now that I'm like, I have it. I can move around a little bit
can lean
more.
in. You can,
like,
There's some more
move all
freedom.
around.
Yes,
I'm in
nice.
it. I kind of feel like I'm preaching right now, but it feels nice. So let me know in the comments if you like this handheld thing or if you're like, Cade, it's too much. But how about we do this, guys? Let's pray.
Yeah.
Let's read a scripture, and then let's just chat.
Okay.
Chat.
Let's do
How does it sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
All right, I'm going to read the scripture, and then we can pray. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12 says 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will be kept warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Jackets. Just kidding. Like, Kate. Though one may be
Blankets.
overpowered, two can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not so quickly broken. I'm excited to talk today about singleness and the importance of singleness leading into relationship.
Yeah.
But you guys want to pray?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it. Jesus, thank you for community. Thank you that single or not, married or not, divorced or not, we don't have to go through this life alone. And that more importantly, we don't just have you, but we have community. In Christ, you died for the gift of community. So we humble ourselves today saying we can't do this by ourselves.
Yeah.
Now we have way too many weaknesses, but in those weaknesses we boast because your grace is sufficient for us. That's where you step up in us. And that's where we can have the humility that we need each other in community to accomplish the great mission that you have invited us to participate in. So we thank you, Jesus, whatever season we're in our life, we just take a moment to surrender and say that your plan is better than our plan.
Yeah.
In your name, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Solid prayer. This guy's
you.
got a secret place.
I know.
You know,
It's always funny after somebody prays, you're like, are you internally rating it, the prayer?
yeah, a little bit. You know, like, you grew up in church when you're rating someone's public prayer.
I'm like, that was a pretty good prayer.
You know, you're like 8-2.
Didn't you
I
have
know.
one of your
Me too.
siblings once say at like a Thanksgiving dinner or something? They were like, "That wasn't a good prayer, JJ."
Yeah, I know. He's not walking with God.
But
Yeah,
he's like, "Hey,
yeah.
that was a weak prayer."
Yeah.
You got like a cousin, go, hey, man, we need to talk.
Yeah, he's a little facetious, you know, and he's kind of take a personal, like, hey, that wasn't a very
He goes,
good
hey, let me
prayer.
sit you down. We just have some.
You're
I
like,
know.
"What?"
You doing okay?
He was trying to get a reaction
Yeah,
out of me,
yeah,
you know, and so you can't give in.
No, you really can't. You got to fight it. Did I just hear that y'all went to Europe for 6 weeks?
Yes, we did.
Where did you go? That's insane.
It was a long trip.
It was long.
Yeah.
I miss it.
Yeah.
Do you? You're like glad to be back.
Nah, I was ready to be back.
Yeah. So we went to, backstory is that my dream originally was to get married in the south of France.
Wow.
But when you're getting, you
Lofty.
as a
Yeah.
woman might have like these
Something
ideas.
light.
Something
Yeah.
just
South
of
casual.
France.
Though it
Le
is
Mans.
actually not that expensive to rent a chateau to get married in. So for all my single people, this dream could be a reality hospitality.
was the craziest thing I've
It's
ever
actually
heard in my
serious.
Literally.
life.
No, it's not that expensive.
Really?
It can be less expensive to get married at a chateau in France than in America.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, especially in
Well, yeah,
California.
because like some people are dropping 40 grand easy
or
on a
more.
wedding.
The average wedding cost is like 35,000.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's average. In California,
Yeah.
that is higher.
You can get a
because-
chateau with like 30 rooms and food for the weekend
Yeah.
for like
For-
20,000.
Can I like
Yes.
be really honest for a sec? No idea what a chateau is.
It's a castle.
Matt, what's a chateau? Matt has no
Matt,
idea
do you know
either.
what a chateau
Also,
is?
guys, Matt's back. I forgot to tell you guys. Matt's back. He was on vacation. He's back. Back on the ones and twos. Hey, Matt, love you. Can you pull up a picture of what a chateau is for me? Thank you.
You got to see
Sorry
this.
to interrupt. I just
we
need to see.
actually,
It's a fancy word for a castle.
It's a French word for a castle.
Just say castle. That's crazy.
I know,
know.
but it's
What?
way
But it's
cooler
like
to say
it's a
chateau.
smaller castle. It's not like Walt Disney World castle.
Got it. It's like a
Well,
middle
it
class
can
castle.
Be. It can
Middle
be
class
big.
castle.
Middle-class castle, yeah.
If that exists.
That might
But
be
you're
the-
going to see
yeah.
a photo of it, and some of them are like really big.
Yeah, I mean, some were built for like kings and queens.
That's
So,
insane.
needless to say, I wanted to get married in Chateau, south of France.
Yeah,
pitched it to
imagine hearing
JJ.
Needless
that.
to say.
Imagine hearing that as a fiance.
JJ was like,
Yeah. Immediately
what?
check bank account.
You know, I told
Yeah.
him this before we got engaged. I was like, this is my dream. And he's like, okay. And, he didn't decline my dream. So I'm thinking
Yeah,
he's
no.
on board. This is going to be great.
'Kay.
Then we
Good
actually get
expectations
engaged.
early, yeah.
And I'm like, great, we're planning this wedding in the south of
it's
France.
one of those things that you hear and you're like, wait, you were serious?
yeah, you go. No, like people have dreams like, I want to go to space.
Yes.
But like,
But I was like,
you know?
no, babe, like literally it's cheaper. Like, we could get a week in France for like 30, 40 of our favorite people for like 20 grand. Like, okay, that's insane.
that's not bad actually.
I mean, and
It's not
There's a
bad.
smooth 20
Yeah.
G's.
It just depends
I
if
mean,
you
it
want to
sounds
bring
like a lot, but when
grainy,
you know how much venues cost in
No, it's true.
America,
It's true.
You're,
You're
like,
gonna
and
spend
they
that.
can like stay there. So it's not just like the venue. You're there vacationing, and your people are there with
Yeah,
you.
but-
So anyway, but it wasn't possible because you get engaged and then you have to make sacrifices.
Where did this
So,
dream come from though?
I love France.
Okay.
And all things French.
You'd been before?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've never been to the south of France where I wanted to get married.
Okay.
But I saw like other people had gotten married there,
Yeah.
and I was like, I want to do this
Yeah.
badly.
One of my best friends is playing basketball in France next year.
Amazing.
In Le Mans, which is
Okay.
like south of Paris. Mm-hmm. And him and his wife are just stoked. And I am probably going to go visit them at the end of their season. So like probably June-ish in 2024.
You should.
If it
sick.
lines up, if we can like make it
June
work,
is
and we're
the
gonna like go
best
do like France and
Yeah.
Europe.
That's
have
what
to
I
go in
did.
June.
I played American football in
Oh, nice.
Switzerland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
I didn't
they
know
have-
Switzerland did American football.
Well, they have football, American football, and basketball all over Europe, like club style.
Okay.
And they bring over Americans to come play. And you can
Wow.
only have a certain amount of Americans on the field or a court at a time.
Wow.
Same for basketball.
Okay.
And so
Yeah. So like in basketball, they can only have like two.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Because they want to grow the game
Yeah.
organically.
They just don't want a bunch of Americans.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, for value, you're better off, but they want to grow it and make it homegrown.
Fair. Yeah.
So every country has clubs.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's not very known. We actually went to an American football game in France,
Yeah, it was so much fun.
like a
I
football
didn't
game.
know
but-
Europe was doing American football at all.
Yes.
Do you have that chateau?
Yeah, it's a castle.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, fact check.
He doesn't have a mic. He doesn't have a mic right now. He goes.
But now you're impressed, right? Are you looking at a French chateau?
It was a castle for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if
it's-
they can. I don't think they can hear him. But he just said. Matt just said. I said, "Do you have that picture?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a castle." It's like, cool. All I need to know. Move on. Got it.
Chateaus are castles.
Chateau's a castle, and they have American football. Your dream's not done.
It is done.
Okay, it's done. Yeah. Okay, got it. That's on me. My bad. No, so this makes me really excited to hear kind of like what your guys' life was like pre-marriage. We're talking today, asking the question, why am I still single? But I'm a guy who believes with what I've walked through,
Yeah.
being engaged, breaking up, I've had girlfriends before that, haven't had a girlfriend since. But I really believe that there's power in singleness. There's
Yes.
power in like there's this kind of idea in the church that you want to survive your singleness. And I
Right.
always say like, hey, I believe that God wants you to thrive in your
Yeah.
singleness because there's so much you can learn and do that will lead into healthy relationships in the future.
Yeah,
So
there's like
I'm-
this idea, sorry to interrupt you, like
No.
that singleness is like a waiting pattern.
Yeah.
It's like this waiting zone, almost like being at the airport. You have a great analogy for that. But like, you're waiting to get on your flight to get to your real destination, which is like
Right.
marriage.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people see singleness as. And I don't blame them because it is what culture has perpetuated, like this
Totally.
idea of marriage. Even churches in some ways, like you see a lot of married leaders. You don't see a lot of single leaders.
Yeah.
You see a lot of marriage ministries, not single ministries.
Well, what about that verse we just read in Ecclesiastes?
Right. I mean, I was thinking about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
But could that not apply also
true.
to community, not just marriage?
No, absolutely. I think it can
Yeah.
apply to friendship. I think my favorite part is a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Like, obviously, when you're talking about 2 is what's the third? It's Jesus.
Yeah.
So like this, to me, this verse talks a lot about like the power of building relationships on the foundation of Christ. And I would say friendships as well
Yeah.
Yeah.
can be part of that for sure.
That's not exclusively a marriage verse.
yeah.
That's a relational verse.
Absolutely.
Or it's basically saying 2 people accomplish more than one alone
Absolutely.
on the foundation of Christ.
Yeah.
Which singleness, sadly, is that waiting time. Like we always say,
It's seen as that.
right. Well,
Yeah.
it's like you go to the airport. I don't know about you. I love the lobby waiting for my flight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can drink, eat anything you want. Work doesn't matter. Like I'm definitely like a chill out guy.
Yeah.
I got my downloaded Netflix.
Are you getting to the airport mad early?
No. So
Okay, so this is in
Caleb and
between
Janine
flights.
were just talking
Gotta
about
get it.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
There's 2 and one marries the other.
Yeah.
I'm like an hour is good regardless.
Yeah, I push it every time.
You
I'm like,
do?
what time do my bags have to be checked? 45 minutes? Yeah, I'll get there.
Well, now we
See.
like getting there a little early if we have lounge access. We're sounding really bougie at the moment, but
oh, you guys are going to flex on this
That's-
podcast.
but
Wow.
No,
You're
that's
gonna come on my podcast
that's
and
the
flex on
adult
me?
version.
It's like-
Graduated promised land of credit card rewards.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I just want to get an Amex just so I can get in the lounge.
I know.
It's worth it.
We got one for the business.
Yeah, have to.
and it was
the
worth
lounge
it.
has been awesome.
Yeah, if you're gonna be
But-
flying, it's worth
Yeah,
it.
it's for ministry, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
We're going to
That's
minister in the lounge.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, over the free food.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually have.
You like
Yeah,
walk
we
up to someone and you
actually
go, hey,
have.
you like free things? Well,
Yeah.
Christ is a free gift for
Oh
your
my
life. It's
goodness.
called
Or you bring someone with you. This is my treat.
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gift for you, not for me, for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. But I think, when you're waiting for that flight, that is one of my favorite feelings in the world. It's like, I don't do work.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out.
Yeah.
And like responsibility doesn't exist. But the second that flight, I look at the board, is a minute delayed, 10 minutes delayed, 30 minutes delayed, an hour, forbid that you're flying Spirit, and you're going to be waiting a while.
I walk by the Spirit, I don't fly it.
Dude, exactly.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Literally fly it,
It's so tough.
And by the way, the Spirit videos that come out every week, from the customer service crack me up.
Yeah, it's so sus.
It's just
Yeah.
a weekly Spirit update.
Yeah.
But as soon as it starts getting delayed, you're pissed, right? You're upset because you had an agreement,
Yeah.
and that agreement is not being honored. And what we see in singleness is people make this invisible handshake with God that by the magic number is 30.
Yeah.
That the
Yeah.
second I go over, the year that goes by, the year goes, they are so disappointed.
Yeah.
They're so
true.
upset. They're so hurt because they say, God, I gave you my life. I did my job.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
You didn't honor your side of the bargain.
Yeah.
And the reality is that in Scripture, there is no promise for a spouse
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. Actually, Paul in 1 Corinthians talks about how he wished we would all be single,
Yes.
which is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Last night I was reading those verses and I was like,
Yes.
this is insane.
1
Yes.
Corinthians 7.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 7, Paul's going, hey, you'd be a better servant of God if you were single.
Right.
If you could be like me and be single. And then he goes on to say basically but if serving the Lord for you is going to be better with a partner, then I guess go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or he's like, if you can't control your urges,
Yeah. If you're burning with lust.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get married.
yeah.
I know. That's
Yeah.
like his definition of marriage.
Love
We're like,
you
it's
for
got to be
that.
the most romantic partner ever. They have to have the perfect eyes,
Yeah.
great jawline,
Yeah.
their last name is a fit.
Yeah.
And Paul's like, if you want to have sex, just get married.
Yeah. Paul's like, just find whoever's closest.
Yeah.
And just wrap it up.
Seriously.
It's honestly what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
But
his
he
definition.
literally makes the point, like, the beauty of singleness is having undivided devotion to the Lord.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
you have, and I know singles hate hearing this, so we have to get into like talking about like, because we're married and people hate hearing this from married people.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like we really
Yeah,
practice
they're like, you
this
guys
in our
suck.
singleness.
You're
Yeah,
right.
they're
You're
like,
single,
"But
whatever.
you have
Yeah,
it,
you're holding
blah, blah,
hands
blah."
right now.
I
know.
know. They're like, ugh.
Kate,
like,
always
Like,
hand holding.
please
Yeah.
don't. But like literally, it's like undivided devotion to the Lord. You have more freedom and time now than you ever will. And like being married does change the amount of commitments you have, the amount of freedom, the amount of time you have. And so I love talking about singleness too, because you see Paul, as we're talking about, as a single man. And I think the funniest part about it is that Paul preached the most on marriage, and he was a single person.
Absolutely.
So we learn the most about marriage from a single person in
Yeah.
the Bible, which
Yeah.
is so funny to me. Like just proving how much purpose like singles have. Like, look,
Totally.
we learn it from a single person. Obviously, we know also Jesus was single. I
Yep.
mean, and so obviously we know all the things he did. So it's
Yeah.
like we see this witness of
You know,
like,
that's why I'm single.
yeah, because of
I just want to be like
Jesus.
Paul and Jesus,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
I just don't need any
exactly.
distractions.
Well, now you got to teach about marriage.
Absolutely. I'm
and
going
parenting.
to right now. Yeah, I'm actually going to teach you guys about
Adulting
how to
with
be
Caden.
married. Yeah, we're changing the podcast to
How to
Marriage
parent.
with Caden.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then I'm going to talk about parenting. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
That'd
I
be
got a lot of.
hilarious.
Well, I
got a lot
have
of
2
experience.
dogs, so this is how I parent them.
Exactly,
And this
yeah.
is how you should parent your kids.
Yeah, I got a 100-pound golden doodle, so I think I know everything
You
about
do?
it.
Yeah.
I do actually.
Dude,
Yeah.
we have a golden doodle.
No way.
And a
Yes.
bernedoodle.
Oh, dude, a bernedoodle is like what I wanted. Sorry, Bronx.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
you guys,
dude,
let's get our dogs together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should we go to the dog beach?
Yes.
when we film our podcast, our dogs hop out all the time, and we put
They
them in front
come
of the
on
mic.
because they have to be in the room with us.
Are
or
they
they're
full
so
size
upset.
or are they like medium?
So the Bernedoodle is miniature.
Okay.
She's like 36 pounds.
Okay, nice.
So, but she's so sweet.
So cute.
So, fun fact: I inherited my golden doodle from
No
the
way.
fallout of my parents' separation.
oh wow.
Yeah, but I wanted a bernedoodle my whole life.
It was like his
Yeah, I did too,
background.
bro.
So the week that we met, Kate hit me up and she's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting a puppy." I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "I'm thinking about getting a bernedoodle."
and
I'm
he was like,
You're like
"You are the one." No, I'm just kidding.
you just look at God. You're like, I see
got
you,
me.
brother.
I'm like, the wait was worth it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad singleness is over. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the last
Yeah,
thing.
singleness sucked. Yeah.
Dude, well, speaking of that, I think, that's the biggest question.
Mm-hmm.
Like the waiting season of singleness, I can't wait to say goodbye to it.
Yeah.
And transparently, Kate and I's attitude was the complete opposite.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about it, but what we call and what we talk about is living in such a way that you grieve your singleness.
I love
Yes.
that. I think
Yeah.
that's something you actually don't hear a lot from people. You hear people like, all right, get out of that singleness and
Right.
like run from
Bye,
it.
Felicia.
Right.
But like I almost feel the same way now. I'm like I'm in like such a good place. I get as much time as I need with the Lord. I'm busy with all the stuff God's doing in my life and serving Him and the podcast and Yona and this and this. And I'm almost like, what would even happen if I did meet somebody right now?
Right.
Like, how would I even manage that?
Right.
But we
Yes.
can talk about that later. I kind of want to hear about you guys, and I
Yes.
want to know like because I don't know this. How long were you guys single before you met? I think you guys are been married a handful of years now.
No, just one.
1 year.
Almost.
Okay.
Not even. Almost a year.
We're coming
Okay,
up.
so
So
I
we're
want to.
still newbies,
I want,
yeah.
yeah, I want to hear like what that was like, what you guys were doing separately when you were single,
Yeah.
where you were at with your walk with Jesus. Like, I just want to know. I think the listeners would love to hear like the inside of singleness from you guys, what you walked
Yeah.
through, your testimony in those areas, and then how you guys met and like what God's done in that.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
JJ.
no,
How long do
just-
we have?
Just
We got
short
a-
little.
Yeah, okay, like
yeah.
2 minutes.
How much time are we at, Matt? Oh, we're chilling.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So I love this because our stories are opposite.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And we
You
actually
know what? Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I have to bring this up. I was on the Heart of Dating website last night, doing my research.
Yes.
Good.
And I saw a picture of you with earrings
yeah,
and
don't
bleached
you have
hair.
earrings?
I actually stopped wearing this. I did have an earring. I was
Whoa,
going
you
through a
whoa,
phase.
you graduated?
I graduated out of the earring.
What happened?
So it's funny. I actually only had my ear pierced for probably like 8 months.
Oh, that's it?
And I was just rocking an earring for a bit. And then I was like, one day I was just like, I don't know. I think I'm just not going to rock the earring today. And I just haven't gone back.
That does happen.
Yeah. I just haven't put it back in. And
Well, bro, I was living vicariously through you.
I know. I should have worn an earring
JJ's
for
like,
you
wait,
today.
look at Caden.
Could
his
you give
earring.
me? Could you give me an earring just real fast?
Yeah,
I'll just,
you want to? You want to put it in?
I'll re-pierce mine right now.
JJ.
Should we? You know what we should
What?
do? Should we start a Patreon? We don't even have a Patreon. Should we start a Patreon and do like exclusive content of JJ getting his ears pierced on Patreon?
That would be a good bonus tier.
It would be
We
a good
hit
bonus
this tier. JJ
if you hit
gets
the
his
tier,
ear
JJ
live.
comes in on questions of
JJ
Caden.
I
will
would do
pierce
that.
his
in a
ear.
We're gonna
heartbeat.
pierce it with like a
JJ
rusty.
will dye his hair back to
We
blue.
were talking about chest hair before this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
JJ will.
Which, by the way, guys, JJ and I decided that we're gonna do a little bit extra chest today. On the
I'm married
pod.
now though, so I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
You
show
can't do
too
too
much.
much.
Yeah, don't do
honey.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro, you're doing too much chest hair.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is
it's
a little bit
all-
too much chest hair. That's another sign
I feel
that
like
I
I'm in
know.
bro
somebody
talk
was
right
sad.
now.
I know.
I'm just
I'm
like,
sorry, Kate.
like witnessing what's
Oh,
going
are you
on.
here?
Yes,
Good to
see you.
yes,
I know.
me
Thanks for being
too.
here.
I love broing out, and
Me
that's
too.
probably the one thing you miss in marriage. Is the best piece of marriage advice I got was, "Hey, around your wife, honestly, be 70% of yourself,
Wow.
because she is not your bro.
Oh wow.
She is not your homie. She's not your best friend to do all your dude stuff with. She's your wife."
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean to not be yourself, but like don't treat your wife like,
Like your
she's
bro.
your bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's not,
yeah.
you know,
Just
it's
like
not
I
locker
can't
room
be
talk,
treating him
you
like
know.
he's like my girlfriend and
Wow, that's
expecting him
good.
to be like, oh my gosh, that happened. Are you serious?
I know.
You know, like he can't. He's not
Wow.
gonna react that
So
way.
that other
you know?
30%, you know, you tailor to them.
Yeah.
You know, which is actually super helpful. Like you have your homeboys and your bros for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can bro out with them. But that is the thing that you kind of start to miss and crave.
Yeah.
Because my life before marriage was very
bro.
bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Hangs with the dudes.
Wait,
I was-
speaking
I
of, you
was a
got to talk
bro.
about your singleness.
Yeah. Yeah. There you
Oh,
go.
okay, yeah. So for me, I was real quick. I was a missionary kid. So
Wow.
I grew up in Belgium, moved over to the U.S., small town named Tennessee. Small town, Jackson, Tennessee,
Wow.
West Tennessee. We got made fun of so badly for our French accents that we refused to speak French,
Wow.
just English. I had to
No
go to
way.
speech therapy for like 5 years growing up.
So did you have like a mad French accent?
Yes, we literally
Hamburger.
No
hamburger. Like we'd be hunting, and be like, "Dad, can I have a bullet?" You know, like it was so bad.
Dude, that's crazy.
And I played football too, so I'd be like in the huddle
So
calling
cute.
plays, and I'd have teammates be like, "Dude, you like sound like you have mashed potatoes in your mouth." Like,
Yeah, people are like, we have no idea what you're saying.
I know,
Yeah, yeah.
dude. It was so tough. I actually like, you know, growing up, if I have to, ironically, you know, we were talking about trauma and being transparent.
Yeah.
For me, if I had to repeat myself 2 or 3 times, I would get like aggressively, you know, upset or angry
Wow.
that I have to repeat myself, and it's from childhood.
Yeah.
Not being understood.
Yeah.
You know, so like I had to actually work through that. Like
That's so
it's
crazy.
okay to repeat yourself, but it's
Yeah.
funny how in life things just that upset you are linked to your childhood trauma and
Yes.
teenage
It's
years.
like the smallest thing can just like
Yeah.
trigger you.
I know, and it's you think back about your childhood, and it's the small things that
Yeah.
you know. We call that little T trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little teacup that you talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
So it's actually an undercase T and then big T trauma, right? But so I grew up, family of 5 kids, like organized chaos. I moved to Nashville, played football in college, and then from there,
Where'd you play?
I played at a D3 school
Nice.
called Wash U in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I went there, and then after that, I worked in the Senate in DC. And then
Wow.
I worked in tech. I worked for a tech startup. And then I went and played football over in Switzerland.
Wow.
That for me was cool because football was always my platform
Mm-hmm.
for faith. And, you know, you get so close to your teammates and you just make your life about serving.
Yeah.
In any kind of credit that you get is always dished out. And so for me, that was like long-term, you know, long distance missions, you know, going
Yeah.
over to another country, playing with teammates who've never even heard of Jesus,
Yeah, crazy.
and just being a Jesus follower in the midst of non-Jesus followers.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. Best experience of my life. And then I came back, moved to Seattle, was working for Amazon there.
Wow.
And then I ironically met Kait when I was in Seattle working for a gaming company, working on e-commerce.
Sick.
I had to move down to SoCal anyway. Happened to meet Kait on a Zoom call in the middle of COVID.
What?
Yes.
Were you guys doing like business? It was like a business call?
She was speaking at a Galentine's conference. And by the way, this is what we'll do after this. You know, they had bachelors come on for like, you know,
A blind date.
2-minute blind
Live
dates.
blind dates.
Wow.
So I was doing a blind date on this Galentine Zoom conference.
Not with me, because I was the
No,
speaker.
and she was
But
the speaker.
crazy.
So I saw her on the pre-call. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
Who is this? And then I saw her talk, and it was like a very lighthearted conversation about self-hatred, abuse, trauma, you know, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
But more importantly, like who she was in Christ and how she was operating today in redemption and healing. And that for me was like, oh my goodness. Now I can't help but ask her out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care about the age difference. I don't care if I...
Which we have a 5.5 year age gap.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
older.
Yeah. I don't
Let's
care if she's a
go.
dating coach. I don't
Yeah.
care if I have blonde hair, platinum hair, blue hair right
Yeah.
now with a
Which he did.
earring, you know.
Which, such a good look.
Thank you, bro.
Bring it back.
Kaden,
Dude, that's what everybody says.
Let him bring it
Hey,
back.
another
Kate.
bonus tier.
Bonus tier 1. Bonus tier 1, bleached hair.
Yeah.
Bonus tier 2,
Oh my goodness.
re-earring.
His family would
3.
actually kill
Look,
me.
Matt literally has an earring and bleached hair right now.
I know. I saw a little bit of myself.
Yeah, in him.
It was like,
So you came in and hated Matt?
No, no. And I was open to dating him. I was just like, I've never done blue hair. Like, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
He was not my type. Like, that's part of my story. I was like, this is not my thing. 5.5 years younger, blue hair.
Wow.
Also long distance. Like, not really my jam, but I was in a season of really challenging myself to just date the unexpected.
really challenging herself. Yeah.
Really challenging myself. And I did not think I'd be interested in him. I was like,
Wow.
sure, this young guy. I was like this young simp.
This
I
young
was a
simp.
simp?
Yeah.
This
Oh, I
young
kinda
simp.
was.
I mean, you showed up with blue hair, bro.
Dude.
I was like,
Simp number 1.
I mean, listen, if simp
was
is just
eager.
code word for like really
a nice guy.
Yeah, no, really like intent on pursuing.
Yeah.
And
The
you
hunt
were.
is on.
Isn't that funny? Christian girls are like, I just want like to be pursued, and then like someone pursues them, they're like, what a simp. Dude.
I know. I know. It's so
That's like
desperate.
my favorite
Yeah,
with Christian
yeah.
I'm
girls.
like,
They're
what?
like,
That's what you
God,
wanted.
Yeah,
you-
you asked for this.
I want a
Yeah.
man.
Well, he's
and
a
then
simp and
it's
he's
a 5'6"
5'9".
guy, and they're like, oh, but not that.
Yeah.
Not this
Not
guy.
5'6".
He needs to be 6 foot
Yeah.
at least.
Matt, we're not coming for you. 5'6" is tall. Yeah.
But JJ, like, I was his first real relationship, so that our
Oh yeah.
so that's another big
and that was very
thing.
different for
Wow.
Kate and me. She was my first true like relationship where like we are committed.
Really? So you
exclusive,
had just like
boyfriend,
gone on
girlfriend.
dates and stuff before? or
Yeah,
what?
what's funny was for me, dating was never appealing. Like 14, 16, 18, I wasn't even allowed to till
Yeah.
like I think 17.
Yeah.
Randomly enough.
Honestly, a good call.
Yeah, I
Dude,
think
it
so
was
too.
the best decision I ever
Yeah,
made.
yeah.
Yes, versus
But-
my story, which I'll tell in a second.
Right.
Mm.
Like I didn't start dating really like intently until probably about 26, 27 because I just felt like
Yeah.
I woke up one day in my life. I was like, it was like the Lion King. Like it's time. It is time.
It is time.
Holy Spirit was like marking my forehead.
Yeah.
I'm like, for some reason I woke up
young
and I just
Padawan.
felt peace about dating.
Wow.
And until then, it was literally it's just me and God.
Wow.
Like doing this thing, and I loved it.
That's insane.
I
dude.
loved it.
So I'll tell you my story.
Yeah,
a
onto
little
you.
bit different, a little bit opposite. I'm 5.5 years older than him. So I started
So
dating.
how old are you guys both
young.
right now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 34.
Okay.
Pretty much.
30, babe, you're 33.
Okay,
Don't-
well, I'm 2 weeks from 34.
But they don't have
And
to
whenever
know
this
that.
podcast
You're
airs,
2
I'll probably be
weeks.
34.
Honestly, it'll probably air in 2 weeks. So
This
you'll be-
is-
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
but
be
this is your last
34.
moment to cash in on being 33. You're Jesus.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
don't
by the
mind
way, when this
aging.
podcast comes out, happy birthday.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Well, you're aging
I don't
so
mind aging,
beautifully.
baby.
And well, you're aging so beautifully.
Like fine wine, you know?
Dude, no,
No.
really. I look at her pictures of 24 versus now. I'm like, you look so much better.
Like at 24,
today.
would you not have asked her out?
No.
No, exactly.
I
No,
was not
seriously.
expecting him to say no.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
have.
That's so funny.
Because
Hey,
I just
good for
like
you.
so much makeup. I was like
Oh,
a
yeah.
fake tan, like
yeah,
all these
shoot.
different things. And I was really into fashion, though you like the platinum look.
Yeah, she had, which is ironic. She had platinum hair and it was okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm just really not for these gender stereotypes
Hey,
and
it's just
rules.
unbelievable. You've just put him
Yeah.
in a role in a box that he
I
just
know.
never
You know,
was
when
called
he
to be.
had, I
I
was
can
like,
express
unless
Let me
you're
myself.
release
Justin
freedom over
Bieber.
you in the name of
Thank
Jesus.
you. This is
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah, just let him be
Hey,
whatever he
you know
wants
what?
to be.
In the month of May, he had a mullet. So that was only
In
a
the
few
month of
months
May,
ago.
1 month mullet.
Yeah, May
Yeah,
mullet.
1 month
Did
mullet.
you give it up? or was it
Yeah,
were you
I
informed
did.
you needed to give it up?
And then
No,
when
that
he-
was a deal.
Okay. Okay.
You know, you work in
I was like,
compromises.
if you're gonna do
Yeah,
this,
you can compromise,
it's
yeah.
got to be when we move. But when he cut his hair in Europe, like you got more compliments on your hair than you ever have.
I did. It was weird.
Wow.
So it
I
was
used,
like almost
hair powder
confirmation
for the
that the
first time.
mullet.
That's all I got in
needs
right
to
now.
leave.
I was gonna ask.
His hair powder, baby.
It's
Dude,
hair
this is
powder.
the greatest kept secret.
I'm telling
Are
you
we
right now.
okay talking about it?
No shot. I'm not giving
publicly.
up the secret. No.
Well, we just did.
no.
You're
Yeah.
gonna
Hair
edit
powder
this
is
out?
game changer.
Dude, it's the best
Volume,
thing
hold,
ever.
texture.
He
What's
only
that?
learned about it in France,
Yeah,
and he was
first
like,
time
"This is
ever.
amazing," and his hair has so
I got
much
more
volume.
compliments on my hair.
I'll show you. I have it in my bag right now. I'll show you which one I use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you have to get a new one because yours is from France, and you're gonna need a new
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
non-French one.
It's J. Crew, I think, but
It
I think
is?
they all
Oh.
did the same
But it's
thing.
Jacques Roux. It's Jacques Roux.
yeah,
Jacques
Oui, oui,
Roux.
monsieur.
Jacques Crew.
So okay, so basically, my parents let me start dating much earlier.
Did you grow up a Christian? Or in a
I grew
Christian
up
household?
Catholic,
Okay.
and then I
So
became
no, got it. Just kidding.
yeah. So different situation,
Not a good
Let's
job.
talk reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then really became more of a Christian like in high school. But I would say my walk with God didn't start really till like post college, and I'll kind of get to that. But so I started dating in high school. I started dating at the age of 14, had so many boyfriends, like just boyfriend. So I dated basically from 14 to 24 nonstop. Like I really was not single for
Jeez.
10 years.
Drake style, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Drake style. Yeah.
never single.
Certified lover boy over there.
Granted, one of those boyfriends was like a long-term boyfriend, like a 5-year. So really only the other 5 years I was dating other people.
Serial dater.
Yeah, I was definitely a serial dater
Yeah.
in high school.
tough.
And I put a lot of my identity in like getting men to like me. And that comes from childhood wounding and
Yeah.
performing and just thinking I would get worth and value from dating. And so just so many boyfriends, so many things. And then eventually I ended up with a guy who ended up being incredibly abusive and in every way. And, you know, he did work for a church. And so it was a really, really tough thing because I had never experienced abuse of any kind.
Yeah.
And he at first was emotionally abusive, but then ended up being verbally and physically abusive. And so I was in that relationship for 2.5 years about.
Was that your longest relationship?
No, I
No.
dated someone before that for
Okay.
5 years, but I
Okay.
mean, in high school through college,
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
know,
count.
so
Yeah.
It doesn't count.
No.
Yeah.
a little bit different. But this was my first like out of college real relationship, and lots of the things like, you know, love bombing galore, gaslighting, like all these terms and things I had never heard of ever
What
in my
was
life.
the first one you said? Love bombing?
Love bombing.
I don't know what that
Yes.
is. Could you explain what
Yeah,
that is?
Dude, this is so hot right now.
I know.
Is it?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Dude, if you ask Court, I don't know where she went. I am the like most behind in trends that anybody could ever be, especially for someone that
hilarious.
like does a podcast or like does social media. I'm like so
Yes.
far behind in trends.
This
Oh,
one,
yeah.
this one's so hot right now.
We
Matt, do
actually
you know
are
what love bombing
talking
is?
about it on our podcast.
Can you Google
like-
love bombing? Give me the. I
Yeah.
need the
Urban Dictionary.
Dictionary. Yeah.
Yeah. It's rough. It's basically actually we had Elise come on our podcast to talk about
Come
it because
on.
she's dealt with this
Yo,
too.
she has a very similar story in that aspect.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's similar. So we bonded on that, like our first girls' night. We talked for like 4 hours about
Oh,
our
sure.
relationships,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
we're like, this is love.
Yeah.
We were love bombing each other. So
You're
in
kidding me.
essence, love bombing is like when you barely know someone, but
Yeah.
it's all grand gestures, like big giant things in the
Okay.
beginning, whether it be like grand words or grand like gifts or grand dates, like
And
really
it's not
big
like
things.
genuine.
No.
Right, because it's like a love bombardment, like multiple things that are
So
just
were we just
way
love bombing
overboard.
each other right now?
Yeah.
Well,
you guys,
the
But I
whole
meant everything I said.
thing, yeah, exactly. The whole thing about love bombing is ultimately it's all for them.
Got it.
It's
Got it. You're trying to get
usually
all
something.
for
a
them.
tactic by a narcissistic person or abusive person. So
Okay.
usually it's very premeditated.
Got it.
So there's a difference between love bombing and like infatuation when two people like meet and they're just like, oh, you're the bee's knees, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Like they
Bee's
that-
knees.
It's her
like-
favorite term lately.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I
Are
don't
you
know,
bringing
I love
that
it.
back? Is
I'm
that-
bringing it back. Okay, guys?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
No, but this is good.
I know I'm a little bit older than
Yeah,
everyone
34
here.
just
Okay?
showed.
Like,
Yeah,
I
you're not that
know.
old.
This is what the ancient people say.
Yeah,
Bee's
yeah.
knees.
Hey, you said it, not me.
But love bombing is like, I do think, and what we talked about on the episode we did with the Lisa is like, now it's like girls are so afraid of love bombing that like any genuine gesture from a guy, they're like, oh my gosh, he bought me
Wow.
flowers.
Yeah.
Like he's love bombing me.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
very
They're too sensitive to
Yeah.
chivalry, like
It's kind of like that
averse.
thing we talked about where it's like, oh, you want to be pursued, but then it's too much. or
Right.
like,
Right.
Yeah.
And any hint of pursuit is like too much.
Wow.
But basically, it's like this in the very
It's tough
beginning.
in
They
these
might,
streets, man.
yeah, oh yeah,
can't do anything.
They might
Right.
say
What are
things
you
like,
supposed to do?
"There's nobody like you. Like I've never met anyone like you." Like in the very beginning, or like I can. They start talking about marrying you,
Or-
kids with you, and it's like a month in or a few dates
Oh,
in.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
that's
like
weird.
when they don't know you.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And so. And usually love bombing, it's a form of control so that eventually so you are so blinded by it that you eventually think the world of them. And so eventually when they kind of switch to script, it's very jarring and you're like, what?
Whoa.
And you owe them.
And you kind of owe them back
like,
for
it's
all
all
they've
about-
done.
They were like being kind to you
power.
this whole time.
Yeah.
or giving you
Wow.
gifts.
So
or
it's
taking
full
you on dates.
manipulation.
Full
100%.
manipulation.
It's kind of sinister. It is sinister.
Yeah,
It is.
It is,
Completely.
yeah.
Whoa.
So this guy was love bombing, mainly verbally, just horrible. But then that turns into like this cycle. That's part of the cycle of abuse too. Love bombing is in there. So like after a moment of abuse, usually it might go into like maybe remorse if you're lucky, but then it'll go into like love bombing. How amazing you are, like gassing you up to like make you as the victim think that, oh wow, they do love me. See, they're a really good person. They all these
Make
things
you forget about the abusive action.
Right.
Exactly. So that's like
Wow.
part of the cycle of
I'm
abuse.
learning so much.
And so you get really jarred because it's like really bad to like really good.
So you just
know?
have no idea where to like land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's and you're so trapped in it that the part of abuse that's the worst is like also the gaslighting, which is when they convince you that you're in the wrong and it wasn't them.
Yeah.
And you're so jarred by it because it makes no sense. You're like, what? But if they continuously say this over and over, you start to maybe believe it. It's really, really horrible. So that's what my abuser did. And just the gaslighting was so bad to a point where I actually believed I was crazy. I actually thought I was making things up. Like maybe I was hallucinating stuff. So he actually got me to a point where I thought like I was making up what was happening.
Oh my gosh.
So long story short, eventually I did get out of that relationship, which still took me at least a year to like really separate from him
Yeah.
because abusive situations, the stat is that an abuse victim will go back to their abuser 7 times on average after leaving them.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
crazy.
That's
And
a
so
lot.
I went back to this guy probably like 30 times. Like I broke up with him a lot, but I always went back. And so it's really hard. It's almost like a drug. It's like being addicted to a really, really bad thing that you know is bad for you, but you still crave it. Like you crave the highs of it. It's really twisted and
Interesting.
you know it's horrible.
Yeah.
Like you can literally say this is the worst thing for me, but I can't get out of it. And so broke out of that, took a year to really get out of it. And then in that process realized like I had been dating for 10 years and had no idea who I was. Like that was the point where I was like, who is Kait outside of dating and relationships? Like I did not know. And I didn't even know if I liked myself because I had formed and shaped so much of myself to like be whatever guys wanted me to be
Yeah.
or be perfect for work, which was another thing I was good at. And so
What were you doing for work at that time?
I was living in New York, working in fashion,
Oh, wow.
and going
like
to
Devil
Fashion
Wears
Week
Prada.
and
Oh wow.
Like literally
Yeah.
traveling,
Yes.
going to Italy.
Crazy.
in Paris,
Very
and like
cool.
front row at fashion shows,
Wow.
and like literally the fashion dream. And so
Yeah.
at work, people were like, "She has it all together." I had like all this, put together style. And so nobody knew behind closed doors, I had this abusive relationship that I was like yelling and screaming with this guy till 4 a.m. and then would come into work and be like,
Put on the mask and just get
yes,
to
Yeah.
exactly, every day.
It's
so
like
hard.
that. Have you seen that graphic circulating where it's like a huge circle of someone's life, and then it's like a little dot of like what you know about?
I haven't seen
I
that.
haven't
Have you?
seen that.
Okay,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's such a good graphic to always keep in mind.
Yeah.
Of the circle, and then what you know is like a little dot. What
Compared
you know
to
about
what?
their
Yeah,
life.
you really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I thrived off. The other image people thought of me, meanwhile behind the doors, like it was so much worse than what other people were perceiving and experiencing. And so in that season, I had to like take a break from men and like not even like even friendships. Like I couldn't even be friends with guys because I was still getting like validation of some kind for just being friends with men. And this is when I truly met the Lord. This is like around 10 to 12 years ago, somewhere in that vein. Gosh. I don't even know the timeline sometimes of when this relationship
murky.
ended. Yeah,
Life gets
I'm like,
murky.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed
But-
when like parents are like, yeah, and in 1967 we got this Cadillac.
Yeah.
In 74 we bought the lake house. I'm like,
my
yeah.
God.
I'm
How
like,
do
I
you
don't even
remember
remember what I
that?
had for breakfast.
Yeah, I don't know what I had for dinner 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
No idea.
like, was
Don't
it
even know where I
2012?
was.
I'm not
like,
sure.
How do you?
Yeah.
How?
So that's when I really started diving into like experiencing God for a whole new, like in a whole new way. Cause I was going to church while I was dating this guy. And I was singing the songs. I had a small group, but I did not really know the Lord. And so it was after that relationship, I really met the Lord intimately. And that was like really helped my season of healing. So I separated myself from guys, went on a journey of healing, and then came back a few years later to the dating scene being like, okay, we're going to do this the right way this time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to research everything about Christian dating, every book, every
Have fun.
sermon, everything. And I'm going to do this the right way. And I realized like there isn't that much for Christian dating out there. So I was like, why isn't there a lot? Like what's going on? And so
You settled on the right way was courting, right?
no,
Courting. Yeah.
Courting.
no.
Yeah.
We're not dating. We're
We're
courting.
courting.
No.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
why
oh,
Matt's
goodness.
in the back of the Subaru with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so funny. But eventually that led me to actually start Heart of Dating, which, JJ didn't come along to start the podcast with me until like 4 years into the journey of that. So I started Heart of Dating podcast as a resource for singles, as a single person, still trying to figure out this world of dating and still with very much a story of dating all the wrong ways, broken dating, but like learning how to love who I was and who God created me to be. So whereas for many years of my life, I loathed singleness and like was afraid of it and couldn't be single, I had to be dating. Like in the past few years before meeting JJ, like I actually completely loved my singleness. Like I transformed it in such a way of like, this is not a horrible time. Like I learned to enjoy time with myself. I learned to enjoy traveling, even solo, like doing things that beforehand I was terrified to do. And cultivating like deep friendships versus before I was friends with a lot of people, but it was like more surface level friendships.
Yeah.
And I had to analyze like who really are truly my friends and who do I really want to be my true close people. And so all of that, my singleness became like this in the past few years before meeting JJ, like I loved my singleness. So when we talk about singleness, I'm like, I know what it's like to hate it or to like not want to be in it. Either you're dating a lot or you're not dating at all. But then like I hate and I feel for singles that are like only want to get out of it so badly because I'm like, you want to taste the beauty of singleness and like the purpose in singleness and like the cultivation of deep, rich friendships in singleness and like finding your purpose in singleness. And I find that when singles don't do that, they really do look to a spouse to fill in all those blanks for them.
I mean, if you're angry and disappointed in singleness, you're going to be angry and disappointed in marriage.
Yeah, it's so good.
I mean, you really are.
Yeah.
And the best thing you could ever do is be most content in singleness. That is the best thing you could actually ever do to prepare for marriage.
Yeah.
And until you are content in singleness, you're never going to be ready for marriage.
Yeah.
Which singles hate to hear.
For sure.
But it is true.
It is true.
Because you're always going to be looking. It should tell them the 1 + 1, which Riley said at their wedding.
Riley Kehoe.
Yes.
Is that her last name?
Yeah.
Right, Jack.
Best
Love you
quote.
guys.
They had amazing vows. Their prayer time was
Loved
like
it.
Yeah.
20
Their
minutes.
wedding.
You
Special
know,
wedding.
goodness.
Yeah.
they're barefooted up there. You know,
So
So different from my
them.
vibe.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's why I love them.
I mean, they're amazing.
Exactly.
And I mean, their one quote that just has stuck with me is 1 + 1 = 3.
Yep.
And it's the chord analogy in Ecclesiastes. Ironically, together, the chord of 3 is greater than 1 by itself.
Yeah.
And the same thing as far as kingdom amplification, marrying this person, the chief focus should be one thing, not to make me happy, not to elevate my life, my status. The chief focus should be that 1 + 1 = 3. Together,
Yeah.
we create something in
Yeah.
the kingdom that neither of us could apart.
Absolutely.
We produce more in the kingdom than either of us could apart. That is the chief focus.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're not soulmates. You're earthmates.
Yeah.
Like
In
good.
heaven, there is no
you're
no
not
marriage.
marriage.
married
Yeah.
in heaven.
Yeah.
So you got a shot of 20, 30, 40, 50 years on earth to do something for the kingdom. And that's the priority.
Absolutely. No, that's so powerful. I think one of the things I love that you said is like both of you guys focus a lot on like friendships during your singleness. I
Yeah.
think I've been there, so I can say this. There's nothing worse than being lonely in a relationship.
Yes.
Because what you did is you never prioritized friendship before the relationship.
Right.
So it was easy for that to leave once you were in the relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What did you guys do when you were single to like build good friendships that are still standing in marriage today?
You did a great job of this. You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
you know, I did have some more time than him, I guess, in a way, being older like than him, that to really figure out like who are my true people. Because
Yeah.
like I said, when we met, he was 26. When I was 26, I was still friends kind of with everybody, and I was like, just everybody's still my friend, you know. And it's like a surface level. Everyone's my best friend.
Yeah. You
And
almost
so-
get to a point. Sorry to interrupt you, but you
Yes.
almost get to a point in your life where you're like, I think less is almost more.
Exactly. My
You
mentor
know?
had to tell me, like, hey, Kait, like, especially leading into doing Heart of Dating and being more of a leader of sorts, she's like, I love that you love people and that you're friends with so many people, but she's like, you, especially if you're going to put more of your story on display and be more in leadership, like, you really have to consider, like, who are your core people?
Yeah.
She helped me separate it into buckets. This sounds horrible, but like, separating it into buckets, like who are the core people that you trust? There's mutual trust between both of
Totally.
you, and it's going both ways. Versus people that maybe you love, but you can't have that mutual. You can't invest, and they're not investing in you. And then there's like people that are acquaintances. You know, you love them, but you're not going to prioritize like flying across the world to see them per se for their baby's birth or something.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like there's going to be, you have to reprioritize the people you're letting in. And so I actually did that exercise. It was super helpful. And I still have done that to this day, but really looked at my friendships and said, like, who do I want to be more like?
Yeah.
And had to analyze that some people in my life I loved as people, but I didn't want to be more like them at all. So, you know, kind of shifting through time, I still love them, but I'm not maybe sharing as much with them. And the relationship just looks different, because that's also really tough. Like, shifting your relationships with people is a really hard dynamic. And
They
sometimes
change in different seasons.
yeah.
For sure.
And you have to be intentional with that. And
Yeah.
sometimes people really don't love that, because you were treating them like they were your best friend, maybe when you shouldn't have been treating them that way.
Yeah.
And now you're like moving away from them. I find this happens a lot in female friendships. And so now, like, my close people know who they are, and you know that it's such a mutual thing. Like, even if a week or two goes by, we don't talk, like, there's no space in between.
Yeah, you could pick up where you left off.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also cultivating not only those friendships, but like the mentorship and the discipleship. I think in singleness is so important. Like, getting a mentor, getting somebody to pour into you, especially if you're a leader of any kind. Like, I think every leader needs somebody to be pouring into them. But I think in singleness, getting some sort of mentor, and what we also talk about for singles who want to be married one day, get around what we call a king and queen couple.
Yeah,
like
those
a
are our favorite.
couple that you admire.
Yeah, I got a couple of those in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you genuinely witness their life.
Yeah.
Like, you might go over for dinner.
Yep.
If they have kids, you might see what it's like with their kids.
Yep.
And like, you
I'm
see
Uncle
them
Cade
maybe
to a
resolve
couple kids
conflict.
that I'm not blood related to at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you see them do conflict.
Yes.
You see, I can't tell you how healing. I have a close friend who did not grow up with a very godly parent example, and she told me she was over there, and she saw the husband get a little aggressive, kind of raise his voice, nothing even crazy, and came back into the room 5 minutes later and said, "Hey, I am so sorry for raising my voice like that. That was inappropriate and disrespectful
Wow.
towards you,
Yeah.
Yes.
and also inappropriate in front of the children. Would you forgive me?" And she goes, you have no idea. I had never heard a man apologize like that for anything even that small.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So even just that example of a king and queen couple demonstrating healthy conflict and what it looks like to honor one another, what it looks like to apologize,
Yeah.
what it looks like to have humility.
Absolutely.
That for singles is so important to have a demonstration and an example of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Instead of just reading about it.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's huge. Yeah, I have a couple in my life. Shout out Jacob and Karen. They
love
just absolute best friends of mine. Like, I would say friend, brother, mentor, like just he's basically me if I'm 40.
Yeah.
I always make that
Yes.
joke. And I always tell his wife Karen, I'm like, I'm just trying to find another Karen.
Yeah.
Because I just love their dynamic of the
Yeah.
relationship. And I've seen it all. I've seen the arguments. I've seen I've seen them serve each other well. I've seen them have fun together. I've seen the whole spectrum. And you're like, it's a great example to be like, oh, I want to be like that.
Yeah, and men specifically,
Yeah.
we need to be showing godly men. Like
Yeah,
I can
yeah, yeah.
yell and shout on this podcast all I want.
For sure.
But if you don't see me serving and loving and putting my ego to the side
Yeah.
and go into the cross, you know, in servitude for
Yep.
my wife, it doesn't matter. But those actions of me breaking myself before her would do more than any podcast episode.
For sure.
Right.
For
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
So, but you did a great job. Kait has done such a good job of like with intentionality attacking your friendships, mentorships, you know, severe intention is what I call it.
Yeah.
Which really rubbed off on me because like you and me, Caden, we like to bro out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we could sit here and have a great time.
For sure.
And the irony is that you and I could sit here for hours and talk and joke about really nothing.
Yeah, dude.
Chest hair,
Absolutely.
hair powder,
Absolutely.
football, you know. We could talk
We
football.
could talk for hours and never go deep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Which
what.
there is beauty in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
But also
sure.
like those relationships where you find with another guy where you can just like open up
I know.
are insane.
Because
Yes.
here's the reality, and I don't know what guy needs to hear this. If all you do with your bros is bro out and joke, then guess what? For hours upon hours, all you did was just bro out and joke around. You did nothing else. You
Yep.
stewarded no friendship,
Yeah.
no relationship. So we need intentionality.
And I would even go further and say like then the issue is what happens is you say I have a bunch of friends.
Yes.
But then when stuff hits the fan in your life and you
Right.
need some people to talk to, you've never built a foundation in your life in those
Yes.
friendships
Yeah.
where you can call somebody and be like, dude, I'm not in a good place.
Right.
Like, I need to talk to somebody. You haven't built that like repertoire, that you don't have that like dynamic.
It's not
and
even
they
a
don't know-
practice of your relationship.
They're like, what is happening right now?
Right.
I don't have any idea how to like
Yes.
engage with this.
Yeah.
I've never even seen this side of you before.
Yeah.
It's so those friendships are so like valuable to
They
have.
really are, and they take intention.
Yeah, absolutely.
They take a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage.
Sometimes
for
you
a
have to
guy.
go. You have to go first.
Yes, you do. And the definition of being vulnerable means to be woundable.
Yeah,
It
whoa.
means as men and women, we're taking our chest piece of armor and we're opening it up.
Yeah.
And we're sharing something.
Kind of like our shirts right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That'd be more like flexing. You know?
Yeah.
I've been benching a lot lately.
Yeah.
No,
No, I lift a ton actually. Yeah.
but yeah, men, listen, we got to find the intention. And the best way to do that is, you know, your Yona nights. You guys are not necessarily sitting down and looking in a small group saying, how can we go deeper? Ask each other questions about our childhood trauma.
Yeah.
You know, let's get really vulnerable. You know what you
Yeah.
guys are doing? You're commonly pursuing a greater goal.
Yeah.
You're commonly pursuing a greater God than all of you.
Yeah.
And ironically, by the end of that Yona night, what do? You look over to your left and right and say, I love this guy.
Oh, dude, the relationships we've seen blossom
Yes.
from a Yona night centered around Jesus and unity
Yes.
is unbelievable.
And the last thing you did was like build in breakout and activity to have, you know,
Yeah.
this is going to be a relational bonding time. No, when you pursue something greater with all of your heart, soul, and mind together, you bond.
Yep.
Naturally. So the best thing you can do is you go out and you pursue God together. You serve together. You suffer together. You know,
Yeah.
you do these things together and you will bond.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you, as men or women, you really find those people, those kingdom cord brothers, you know, where
Yep.
you grow. And those friendships are more rare, but they do last, especially now. You know, you can keep a long distance friendship, you know, if you're intentional.
Yeah,
I
for
have
sure.
friends, you
Absolutely.
have friends, we all have friends across the country that
Yep.
for
Yeah.
years and years we've stayed in touch now because they are one of those few, you know, that you've really melded with,
Yeah.
you know, under duress, under tension, under heat.
Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of, I think we kind of plateau sometimes in relationships.
Yep.
And you found a way that you can be honest with one another. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the struggle, I think the biggest killer, and I know I'm rambling,
It's a powerful ramble, bro.
but
Ramble on.
I've been thinking about this one so much lately. The biggest killer of relationship right now is the inability to be honest with one another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Think about how it just suffocates relationship.
Yeah.
Does.
I have feedback for you. I have something I need to tell you. And instead of telling you what I'm going to do for 3 months, 6 months, I'm going to let it drag out. I'm going to avoid you. I'm not going to participate with you. I'm not going to go there. And the relationship suffers.
Yeah.
Versus the opposite, you know, when we can be honest and break through that barrier together.
Totally.
Where you know I love
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and I'm also going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That is
That's
like
a real relationship right there.
exactly.
Bro. Levi Lusko says this thing about marriage. He says, like, find the person that you want to suffer the most with.
That's
And
good.
I think it's such a powerful statement, but I also think it's like very applicable for friendships as well.
Yes.
Like find the people that you want like in your circle that you're like prepared to like suffer with, because
Yes.
you know scripture doesn't promise a perfect life. If anything, it actually promises suffering
Yes.
Right.
in a lot of ways.
Literally.
And
yeah.
if anybody is walking in a relationship with Jesus and is expecting a perfect life, good luck, because life is life and there will be suffering. And scripture even talks about count it joy to suffer like
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
But the reality is we have suffering moments. But when you have those people in your life, you've built those friendships or your relationships where you're like, hey, I'm honest with everyone in my life. I can be vulnerable when I'm suffering.
Yeah.
Like you just have like a foundation that you've built your life on that is
Right.
like can sustain so much more of like the trials of life.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's firm.
Right. But it takes wisdom. It takes wisdom to
Yeah.
know that. James
Yeah,
1,
yeah.
2, 3, and 4. James 1, 2 through 4. We love the quote, life verse. Therefore, count it joy, my brothers, as you enter various trials of many kinds.
Yeah.
The first verse after that is, therefore, let us ask for wisdom. Because it takes wisdom to take inventory of your life, to know I can't do this alone, that I need other people. It takes wisdom to say this is going to stink. It's going to be painful, but I got to share this burden with other people.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you guys this question. What was something that you felt like y'all did in your singleness that you're seeing now as like fruit now in your marriage that you'd say you're proud of?
What do we do in
A
singleness
lot.
that we're proud of?
I think a
Yeah,
lot of
that
good
set
things
you up
like
for
yes,
success in your
For
marriage.
me, one of the biggest things I would say was definitely doing tons of healing, because
Yeah,
for me,
it's good.
with the story I shared, like I looked to men to fill a void in my life that I needed to fill from God, and I needed to heal outside of relationship. Now, I will say there's part of our relationship together with JJ that has helped to continue to provide that healing for me.
Praise God.
And I did a lot of that healing work before meeting him, like a lot of healing, a lot of awareness, so that I could, before, again, like I had no idea what love bombing, gaslighting, like I didn't know inner child. I didn't know my core wounding. I didn't have any of that terminology or awareness for myself of anything that happened in my childhood that was still affecting me today. And so going into those really deep and challenging layers, I went on multiple like week-long intensive retreats, you know, like where it's like a crazy therapy in 1 week, where you go through like a year of therapy in 5 days and you're like,
Wow.
oh my gosh,
On-site.
this was insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
that sounds like
on-site.
exhausting.
Yes, it
But
is.
kind of amazing, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, just like really diving in, and there's so many people that might listen to my story even and say like, oh, well, I haven't been through all that. But what we find is even if you haven't been through like an abusive relationship and all this kind of like everything I've been through in relationships, even if you've never been in a relationship, which a lot of people haven't, there are still things that are affecting how you're showing up today in your life, especially in relationships, like from your childhood, from your teenage years. And if not dealt with, it will continue to come up and you won't even know. And it'll feel like, well, this is just how I am.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that wasn't how God wanted you to truly be, but because of certain things that happened, you now show up in those ways. And I find a lot of singles lack confidence in who they are. Like they just really they are insecure, they lack confidence. And you can see that on dates. And you can see that in how much they obsess over the other person, like liking them back and not rejecting them. And that all has to be addressed in healing. Like that has to be addressed.
That's huge.
Before you meet another person. Ideally, as much as possible. We're not perfect. You're not going to be like, I am perfectly ready to date. I am perfectly healed. Nothing will ever come up again. I will never be triggered. That is not going to happen. But, for me, just doing as much healing as possible, things still came up for us, but I had more tools to deal with it. I had more language. I had people to go to. I had my therapist and a coach that I go to.
You built the foundations to be like, I know what that is. I know why that came up. Here's how I can improve that.
Exactly.
All right, let's keep it moving.
Well, the big thing is like we live in such a self-awareness culture that like we think by going to therapy and pointing out the problem, like pin the tail on the donkey, like got it, that's it.
Yeah.
I've been to therapy. I know what the issue is.
Right.
That's only half.
Yes.
That's only a half.
It's a great part of it. Awareness is great, but it isn't the full thing.
So we have to be able to transform the pain, of childhood, teenage years today, because if you don't transform the pain, you transmit it to other people.
Well, that's a word, yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And so much of that pain that we interact with on a day-to-day basis from people is just undealt with pain.
Yeah.
Unvalidated pain.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've done a great job. That was ironically my answer. It was, inner healing, really in the sense of, going back to childhood and teenage years. We grew up with a lot of our parents who, have you seen Jesus Revolution?
Absolutely.
Great movie.
Yeah.
We were just at Pirates Cove. I was just like crying internally. Just so amazing. You think about like the portal, like in the spiritual realm of what that place signifies.
Yeah. It's
how many
crazy.
souls have been committed to Christ there? Just a gloriful,
amazing,
amazing place.
They just did it again too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I think it was like 4,500, a few weekends ago.
So good.
I just like in the heavenly realm, like I just imagine that place is like
Popping.
the concert of all concerts of just heaven rejoicing and rejoicing and rejoicing for thousands and thousands of souls. Amazing.
I love that
for
picture.
decades.
That's so cool. Yeah.
For decades. And that's how you know the ministry is for real.
Yeah.
Sustained over time.
Yeah.
So, but inner healing where it's just, going back to those childhood and teenage memories and realizing that God was there.
Yep.
And Jesus was there. And something happened in that moment where I exchanged the truth for a lie.
Come on.
That I got to do this myself.
Yeah.
That I'm all alone here.
Yeah.
That no one cares about me. That my body is wrong. I'm too fat. I'm just ignored. I'm suppressed. I'm misunderstood. There's something that happened in that moment where we exchanged a godly truth with the enemy.
Yep.
And listen, we grew up, back to my point, with all these parents. My dad became a Christian in the 70s from, just somebody witnessing in the mall. Do you know Jesus? And what happened was they all became Christians in one wave. It was an amazing move of God. But they all thought, hey, we're new creations in Christ. Let's move forward, baby. The old me doesn't matter. I'm new.
Yeah.
I thank God every day for my new identity. The problem with that is if you were in prison, max security prison for 3 decades, and it's the rough one, the one you don't want to hear stories about, and you got released that next day after 30 years, you might be free, but the trauma, the habits, the pain, the sleeping on a prison, that's all going to be very familiar. And it's going to be in your DNA. And you might be free from that prison, but the habits, everything still remains.
Everything hasn't
your brain,
fully transformed. Even
all the thought patterns,
neurologically.
The urge to protect you, that all remains. Just because you're free doesn't mean all of your habits and how you form your brain and your emotions.
It's a process of sanctification.
Right.
Exactly. And sanctification really is just And one of my favorite quotes is, you can only be as spiritually mature as you are emotionally mature.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can only be as spiritually mature as you are emotionally mature.
Yep.
And that means the best thing that you can do is actually emotionally realize that they're given to you. They're a good thing. And in childhood and teenage years and adult years, God was there.
Yeah.
And he loves, I think Holy Spirit loves to go back in that pain and visit it and say, hey, what did I believe here? And what's actually true?
That's so
and how do I
good.
start believing that?
That is so good. Yeah, I just think like people need to be encouraged that like singleness is not wasted.
Yeah.
And I think like we touched on that a little bit, but I just think that there is just this idea that there is like this wasted space in their life of like, you know, maybe when I get married, then like God will start using me, or like maybe when I get married, then I'll be healed, or I won't struggle with this porn addiction anymore, or I won't have this problem, or my anxiety will go away, or I won't be lonely anymore. Or like we just have like maybe put marriage on this pedestal of like, this solves my problems.
Right.
Yeah.
When like the reality of what you guys both said is like, if you want marriage to be something that God uses for you to advance the kingdom, you got to get ahead of it,
Right.
work on those things before you get married.
Yes.
Because I think we both, everyone in this room would agree, like there's something powerful in marriage. Ecclesiastes just talked about the power of two. And Satan hates marriage. Satan hates families. Satan hates the success of what happens when two souls can join as one in the kingdom of heaven. He hates that. And he wants to do nothing more than attack that. And so even when you get married, he's going to come for you harder.
Yeah.
Right.
So like preparing yourself and doing all the work beforehand is so important. Okay, last question for the listeners. We'll let them go. I'm sure some of them are at the gym and their workouts are ending or their drive is almost over. One tip for singles getting ready for marriage, whether maybe they're engaged, maybe they're dating. Just one tip real quick for them. What would you say?
You go, babe.
I know what you're going to say, so go ahead.
No, you say it.
I don't
I'm
wanna
going to
copy
change
you.
mine.
No, you do it. It's so good. It's the best tip ever.
The legacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Just the T-ball, the little lob to
I'm
her.
like, okay. Yeah, I would say, what is the legacy you're going to leave in your singleness? Like, ask yourself that question. And if there is nothing there, like it's a little morbid, but if you died tomorrow, single, what would they say on your tombstone? Would it just be that, like, Kait, she pined after men forever and just wanted to be married?
Wow.
Like,
And died
would that,
incomplete
and
and
died
unmarried, right.
without fulfilling that dream.
Wow.
Like, I think there's so many singles that live in that state of like, if they died next week, like they would just have been thinking about marriage this whole time. And I'm like, you don't want that to be the legacy you leave.
No way.
And I'm not saying you're going to die anytime soon. However, when you graduate, quote unquote, not graduate, when you leave this season, there's no graduating. When you leave this season into marriage, if that's part of the journey for you, like what legacy are you leaving as a single? Are you going to be like Paul? Are you going to be like Jesus? Okay, we can all never be exactly like Jesus, but are you going to live in those footsteps? Like, what are you going to leave behind that is like, hey, I'm so proud of that season that I lived.
So good.
And like, I'm like, that is a season that I don't look back and I'm like, oh gosh, I was just so
Right.
lost. I was just so this, I was just so that. Like, no, this is a season where I may have been lost, but I sought to figure it out, and I sought that healing, and I turned my life around, and I found my godly purpose, and I cultivated those rich friendships. And if you're getting older and you're listening and you're older right now, like I fostered children, I did this, that, and the other, and I'm so proud that I didn't wait for my life to begin when I was married. Because
Yeah.
I feel so many people do. They're like, I'm just going to wait until
Yeah.
that next season.
Yeah.
So what
That's
legacy are you
huge.
going to leave?
So good. They're going to
that's
retire your
fire.
jersey on the wall.
Yeah,
you know?
that's fire. And honestly, I'll say like that's one of the things that if I would say I'm proud of what I've done in the last 3 years of being single, I'd say it's that.
Yes.
Like I
yes.
think I once me and my ex broke up, I decided like, oh, I'm way too far out of what God has called me
Yeah.
to. I need to get right. I need to get like
Yeah.
centered with Jesus. I need to get back in the will of God in my life. And once I did, I worked on two things: intimacy with Jesus,
Yeah.
and then what came out of the intimacy with Jesus. I no longer was going to wait for a girlfriend, for a
Yes.
wife, for anything to do what God called me to do. I wasn't going to wait
So good.
anymore.
Yeah.
So that's probably an encouragement for somebody listening right now. Like, you don't have to wait. God's called you to something. God has something for your life. Maybe it's
Yes.
healing even, or maybe it's something he wants to do and start through you, a dream. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Like,
don't
start it.
wait.
Yeah. Because the reality of if you took inventory of your soul and that one thing that you have not gotten healing for,
Yep.
that's not disciplined in God, that
Yep.
you don't have accountability on, guess what? That's going to come to the surface
Oh yeah.
very quickly.
Oh,
In
yeah.
relationship. Yes.
And marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Marriage is a mirror. And you
Yeah,
get
wow.
to
You're-
see
you will face
you
it.
get to see everything up close and personal. That's
Wow.
all it is. Marriage is a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say I want to talk about eternity, but I would probably just say, especially for this age group, you know, if you think about if you were the enemy and you had a single person, you know, I just feel so, I look back at my singleness and like half the time I spent in the church, I was so distracted by that cute girl.
Yeah.
Are they raising their hand?
Yeah.
What are they wearing?
Yeah.
Did they bring somebody? You know, stalking them on Instagram, like what's going down in their life.
Yeah.
I was so
That's so many girls, too.
distracted by the single girl
They're
that
distracted.
half the
yeah.
church services I went to, I couldn't even tell you
Wow.
what the pastor talked. And more importantly, when I did go out with them, not leaving them better than I found them. So I would just say my big thing is if you were the enemy and you had a big group of single Christians in front of you who wanted to be hungry for God, the number one battlefield that could cause the most chaos, confusion, disruption, comparison, theft of joy, relationship killing is dating. So just know the battlefield you're walking into.
Yeah.
Like this is either a great battlefield to glorify God, to grow closer to Him, to do it with community, to do it well, or it could be the inverse.
Yep.
It could be the biggest distraction, the biggest killer of joy, the biggest thief. It could be the greatest battlefield in your life to just distract you and destroy any spiritual formation and advancement of God's plan in your life.
Wow.
And
That's
we
so
love
good.
dating. Like
Yeah,
that's
and
the
we
funny
love
part. Like
dating.
we
Yeah.
we talk about dating all the time, but I
But-
love that you're
but yeah,
saying that. Like
if done
you're
well, it can
dating
be
with the wrong
amazing.
intention,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
gonna become
It-
that.
I love that saying. I actually heard somebody say that the other day. Like, oh, my hope is I'm dating this girl, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay. I just want to leave her better than I found her.
Yes, yes.
I like got teary eyed. I like
Yes.
he's a good friend of mine, but I'd never heard someone say that before.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you just put like words to like what I have been like most excited for to date like in this
Yes.
next season of my life.
Yes.
Imagine if
That
Christian
should be
women-
the number one goal.
Imagine if they left relationships more encouraged,
Like not wounded.
more
Yeah.
overjoyed
Yeah.
that great Christian
Yeah.
man exists.
Yeah, like you honored her in every single way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
As
Because
to the
I
best
met
of your
him.
ability.
Yeah.
Like you're not
No.
perfect, but
Yeah, I mean the
if
best
you
I
made
could.
mistakes,
yeah.
you humbled yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
apologized. You admitted to it. You
Right.
know, like even that example, I'd be like, I'm so impressed by single men that
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's huge. Well, guys,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on. Can you tell listeners what's coming up next for you guys? What you got going on? Any conferences?
we do have a conference coming up. We're
Can we talk
announcing
about
it. No, we can't announce it yet. But we're announcing
Yeah,
it
this
month.
podcast is going to come out in 2 weeks.
Okay, so this month we are announcing where it's going to be, when
Let's
it's going to
go.
In
Oh.
September.
be. Well, mid-August we're announcing.
Oh, okay. I got my dates wrong.
It's almost August, bro.
That's so funny. I was like, we're in August.
So we do have a next conference coming up. We're so excited about
Yeah.
it. It's going to be amazing.
Nice.
And we're doing a season right now on red flags. It's
Yes.
Red flags versus deal
On the
breakers.
podcast.
It's fun.
We're having you on the show,
Come
actually.
on.
Speaking of
We're going
which,
to talk about
let's
that.
go.
We're going to talk
all
about
red
dating
flags.
new, lukewarm, or non-Christians.
I'm
That'll
excited.
be
I'm
That's gonna be
excited to
so
talk
fun.
about it.
fun.
I'm
Can't
excited.
wait.
For the listeners, all of their links will be below in the description. You can go to heartofdating.com
Yep.
for all your stuff.
Yes,
They do
everything's
awesome
there.
conferences. You guys even do like mixers and stuff, don't you?
We do sometimes. And we also do an awesome, like, intensive mentorship program.
Intensive mentorship.
Called School of
Yeah.
Dating.
Yeah.
Very
Not for the faint of
intensive.
heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of you guys need it. All right.
If you're single,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
maybe.
some of you guys need it. No,
maybe-
but for real, guys, thanks for coming on. Awesome to
Thank
have you.
you.
We'll have to run a part 2.
Yeah.
At some point, have you guys
we're
back.
open.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Anytime.
Alrighty,
bro.
guys. Well, thanks, listeners, for listening and watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Let's go.